Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The latest round of conference expansion kind of started with the Big 12, when Oklahoma and Texas decided to bolt for the SEC. Is the Big 12 in a better position now? Also, the Ravens are hungry, and the Green Bay Packers will have an elite rushing offense this season.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
There is the old adage, survive or die, in college football expansion and college sports expansion. Right now, the adage is expand or die. And that is what the Big 12 tried to do, poaching Arizona, Arizona State, and Utah from the Pac-12, which, by the way, maybe did pretty soon. Drake Toll from Locked On Big 12 joins me now, our new host of Locked On Big 12. And Drake, this is one of those interesting moves for expansion where it actually geographically makes some sense, like some sense here. How do you think the fit is for these three schools?
Well, the Big 12 is now almost a coast-to-coast league. It's at least an east-to-west league when you have West Virginia on the East Coast, and now you have teams like Arizona coming in, these four corner schools with Utah and Colorado as well. This has been a long time coming. We thought at one point the Pac-12 could scrounge everybody together, and these mighty teams could do what the Big 12 did 2 years ago and keep things afloat, but they just couldn't. The Titanic sunk. And the Big 12 started casting out lifeboats. They didn't give one to everybody, but they gave one to the teams that belong, right? It feels like Utah and BYU, that rivalry is renewed. It feels like Arizona and Arizona State have that, especially with BYU being here, that place in the Big 12. And then there is the conversation of Colorado, which was already here, and we have quickly forgiven them for leaving. And they bring you Deion Sanders. A year ago, this is a much worse move with Colorado, but now I watched an ESPN promo for college football season coming up. 3 shots of Deion Sanders in that promo in a minute and a half because he's the biggest show in the Big 12, and I don't mind that.
And so now I think that raises the question with other teams. I mean, the Big 10, they're the Big 18 now. So if you're the Big 12 and now you've added some of these schools, that gives you credibility. And there are going to be other schools at other conferences going, hey, wait, that seems like a good place for us to be. Do you think this is the end of all of this? And if not, where do you think they look next?
Well, first and foremost, with that point, Oklahoma and Texas are kicking themselves. They're at least thinking about, wow, what a time to leave the Big 12. It looks great a couple of years ago, and now we're going to go get kicked in the SEC when we could be beating teams like Arizona and Arizona State who have struggled so mightily in football recently. So that's the first point I think of, are the two that left. See you guys later. And then when it comes to further expansion, you're going to have to stop at some point because you've got 16 forces, 8 of them brand new. If I've got a city council, a board of regents, anything that is making a decision, and eight people of 16 are brand new, if half of my staff making calls are brand new, not usually a good thing. You're going to get bite off more than you can chew. Get a little bit in a little bit too deep if you keep going here. So you stop at 16. You do not, I know I mentioned life ravs, but you're a business first. You're a business before you're a charity. So you don't go after Oregon State. You don't call Stanford, maybe a UConn in basketball, Gonzaga in basketball to supplement for where some of these new teams lack. However, 16's the cutoff. And at 18, I think I'd get worried.
I asked this yesterday when we were talking with our Big 10 and Pac-12 hosts about this idea of, okay, what if I start getting opportunities to add some premium schools? Does that start putting some of my maybe lower end schools in terms of prestige, in terms of that blue blood appeal? Does that start putting them at risk? Is there a point where you could see, let's say there's just 3 conferences. It's just the SEC, the Big 10, and the Big 12, however they rebrand, because let's be honest, they're going to need to be a rebrand at some point, where you think the Big 12 looks around and goes, I don't know, maybe some of these lower level schools, like if we could add a Florida State, if we could add, let's say the ACC starts to get a little desperate, like we could add a Clemson. Does that start to put some of these lower rung schools at risk?
That's a trim the fat conversation, and we'll have it the entire season and all through expansion, and it will never take place. A conference like the SEC will never kick out Vanderbilt. The Big Ten will never kick out Rutgers. They could be the doormat in every sport. But once you've picked them up, it's so tough to say, hey, look, ESPN, hey, look, Fox, we have signed X TV deal. Now we're kicking somebody off. Even if that team's not bringing you a lot of revenue, you've already made the decision to bring them on. There won't be a point where the Big 12 trims any of the fat. And I think, I really do, the Big 12 is the most complete conference in college athletics because there is not any fat to trim. There is not a bottom dweller in this league. We don't have a Rutgers. We don't have a Vanderbilt. And I love that.
Stay up to date all year on the Big 12 by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Big 12 on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, Lamar Jackson has some weapons to work with now. Will this be the season the Ravens put it all together? Before we answer that, the ACC could be benefiting from the Pac-12's demise very soon. Football season is about to kick off, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to win all season long. Because right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. Just pick any team to win this Super Bowl, and you'll get bonus bets for every victory. You can use your bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Who would be the best team to bet on to take advantage of this offer? I don't know, maybe a team like the Kansas City Chiefs, the defending champions. Ever heard of them? Patrick Mahomes, ever heard of him? So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. ACC leaders are set to begin exploratory discussions on the potential addition of Cal and Stanford to the conference, according to Monday reports. This is still in its very early stages of development, but as the Pac-12 disappears, as it has been doing over the last few days, the ACC is the only power conference to not have added any schools. The report noted the big hurdle will be travel expenditures for all teams. Cal and Stanford will also be looking at taking less than full shares of revenue. Considering it's money that has driven all of the recent rounds of conference realignments, it's unfortunate that both Cal and Stanford are in this position of being forced to simply take what they can get. The Detroit Lions are bolstering their quarterback depth. They reportedly agreed to bring in Teddy Bridgewater to back up Jared Goff. The signing will reunite Bridgewater with Lion head coach Dan Campbell, who was the Saints' assistant head coach and tight ends coach when Bridgewater was in New Orleans. The Lions were looking for the highest level of insurance in bringing in another backup. A bizarre story was reported on Monday in which the Baltimore Orioles indefinitely suspended one of their broadcasters. Orioles play-by-play broadcaster Kevin Brown reportedly was removed from the Mid-Atlantic Sports Network after he made a reference to Baltimore's lack of success against the Tampa Bay Rays at Tropicana Field in previous years. That's it. That's the reason for stating an objective truth about a team's record. It wasn't because he did something bad or said something offensive. He merely pointed out a fact, although it is a pretty bad record. Before a game against the Rays on July 23rd, Brown noted that the Orioles had won as many games at Tropicana Field in 2023 as they had in the past 3 years combined. Safe to say no one thought that would be the result. There was a graphic to accompany the stat. This was pre-produced. Everyone knew this was going to happen. It didn't seem like a weird thing because it's not. Brown has worked for the Orioles as a TV and radio commentator since 2019. On the diamond, the LA Dodgers and San Diego Padres finished a 4-game set on a Monday with a high-scoring blowout.
Well, when the Dodgers went down 5-0, we thought it was going to be a blowout. Turns out we were right. What's up? It's Jeff from Locked On Dodgers. The good news is it wasn't a blowout the way it looked like it was going to be. After the Padres scored 5 runs in the bottom of the third to go up 5-0, the Dodgers answered in the top of the fourth with an 8-run outburst, culminated with a grand slam by Mookie Betts, tying the Dodgers team record of 11 grand slams this season. I believe it was Mookie's first of the season, but it was 31st homer of the year. And they tacked on 5 more in the 6th inning. And Tony Gonsolin, after that rough 3rd inning, made it through 6 innings, allowed a total of 6 runs, but only 1 more run after that inning. and gave the Dodgers the length they needed. Joe Kelly dominated in the 7th inning, and then Brian Hudson finished it off with 1 run in 2 innings. Dodgers win the game. So much to talk about from this game and the whole series with the Padres. So check out Locked On Dodgers every weekday morning for all the Dodger talk you could ever want.
And the Boston Red Sox got a much-needed win over the Kansas City Royals thanks to a walk-off grand salami.
Hi, Gabby here from Locked On Red Sox. Oh my gosh, Pablo with a massive walk-off grand slam in the bottom of the 9th inning. I truly thought that the ball was going foul. It barely got fair. It actually hit the foul pole. Huge win for the Red Sox. They really needed that after getting swept by the Blue Jays. Brian Bayo with another really solid start. Pitched 6 2/3, giving up 1 run. I don't hate that Alex Cora pulled him when he did in the 7th inning. I think you want to keep his confidence where it's at, because if you keep him in and he gives up a run or 2 while he's pitching, then the confidence kind of goes south again, especially because he had been struggling in his last couple starts prior to this one. But wow, was that a huge win for the Red Sox. Got to keep up the momentum, please, and take advantage of this, if you want to call it, soft part of the schedule.
To begin the offseason, you could have forgiven Ravens fans for wondering what was hitting them on top of the head. The sky was falling. Lamar Jackson seemed like he might not be a Baltimore Raven much longer. The skill position players were in a shambles. And now, just a couple months later, I got Zay Flowers in the building, Odell Beckham Jr., who apparently would have just gone full Madden on the Rams or on the Bengals in the Super Bowl had he been healthy, is now in the building. And of course, the man, Lamar Jackson, has a brand new shiny contract to show for it. Kevin Ostreicher from Locked On Ravens joins me now. And Kevin,